Still broadcasting from the Civic Cypher Studios, this is the QR Code, where we share perspectives, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. The man you are about to hear from is a man who can wear a button-up collar better than anybody else I've seen. He is the Q in the QR Code. He goes by the name Q Ward.
The voice you just finished listening to packs a carry-on of hope on every trip that we take, because he know that I'm not paying for no carry-on. He knows that. He's the R in the QR code. He goes by the name Ramses Ja.
Stick around. We got a little bit more show in store for you. We're going to be talking about how Donald Trump himself doesn't believe he's going to get into heaven. And I'm really excited to have two preacher's kids give our assessment of that statement. We haven't had a conversation beforehand, but really anxious to get into those weeds because, yeah. Prior to that, though, we're going to listen to Q Ward's clapback as he talks to us about how the right has simply stopped pretending. Q, take it away.
They stopped pretending, Rams.
Yeah.
Like, everything that's happening is scary. But when power no longer bothers to hide its contempt for law and order and the Constitution, democracy is beyond the danger zone. It might be beyond repair. I want to make this crystal clear. The most dangerous moment in our lifetime was not when we realized that there was deep-seated corruption at the very top of government. It's when those people stopped even pretending to trick us anymore. When they stop pretending to hide it, which means they no longer fear you, they no longer care, they realize nothing can be done to stop them, that's when you should be most afraid. And we're living in that moment right now. They've taken their mask off. Symbolically.
Okay.
In real life, they've actually put mask on.
Yeah.
So we don't know who they are in some cases, but we talk about hypocrisy on this show. And it's not subtle anymore. It's loud and proud, and like they throw it in our faces. And a couple of stories that we've talked about and that we've seen in the news this week make that painfully clear. We spoke about the Dominion voting systems sale. And my brother brought up something regarding his hope that this thing might turn out to be something that's not so bad. Ramses, you wouldn't happen to remember the name of the gentleman that purchased Dominion, would you?
His name is... I got it right here. His name is... Scott Leindecker.
Okay, I was just making sure it wasn't John Giles, the Republican Arizona mayor that you brought up that endorsed a Democrat in the election, who, was anti-MAGA and thought that maybe we should do something different.
Right. Yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, he's the only person on that side of the aisle that I've heard do such a thing.
Yeah.
Everybody else, either we win or it was rigged. Is how they typically go. So you have the Dominion voting system sale. And then, is it Qatar or Qatar or Qatar?
I say Qatar, yeah.
I've heard it said all those different ways. Having a military facility on U.S. soil.
Mm-hmm. Training facility. Yeah.
They tell us the same story every time. And this movement no longer even bothers to act like it believes the things that it tells us. Right? Because for years, Dominion was the boogeyman for the MAGA movement. Remember, they told us that elections were rigged and Dominion was corrupt.
Yeah.
And Dominion was the reason they lost.
Mm-hmm.
They defamed Dominion. Dominion sued to the tune of about $800 million. But MAGA continued to build entire conspiracy theories and an entire ecosystem around the idea that this thing is rigged and they were robbed and cheated. And now prominent Republican-linked actors are buying it, rebranding it, and controlling the very machines they said were a symbol of a stolen election. The same base that burned down democracy in the name of election integrity is now cheering the purchase of the company that they swore destroyed America. Oh, wow. If that's not proof that they never even believed their own story, I don't know what is. Again, not about principles, but about power. And when people stop pretending, their lie becomes their actual strategy. Now, Qatar has gone from terror sponsor to trusted partner. Back in 2017, Trump stood in front of the cameras and called Qatar, and I quote, a funder of terrorism at a very high level. Fast forward to 2025, and the same movement is proudly announcing plans for Qatar to build and operate a military training facility on U.S. soil in the heart of our country in Idaho. The America First government giving operational space to a foreign military it once accused of financing terrorism while telling us about national security. Turns out it's pretty flexible when power and profit and political optics are to be gained. It's not just hypocrisy, it's a brazenness that's dangerous. And now they know it's inconsistent, but they don't care anymore. These aren't separate stories. This is two sides of the same playbook. They scream rigged elections and buy the machines. They scream America first and then hand military training space to a foreign military that they accuse themselves of corruption and terrorism. They once told us the Constitution was sacred, but they treat it like a prop when it gets in their way. The real danger is this hypocrisy, like I said, is not hidden, but now is becoming normalized. They see flip-flopping, lying, and stepping on their own feet as strategy. And the institutions that were supposed to be safeguards and checks and balances are quiet because they're complicit. When power stops pretending silence is not neutrality, it's surrender. When they can buy the machines they once called corrupt and welcome foreign militaries that they once called threats and do so without blinking, it means they believe that no one can or will stop them. But here's the thing. Hypocrisy only wins if it's allowed to calcify into reality. It only wins when we let exhaustion replace outrage. They stop pretending, and that should scare us far more than the lies did, because lies can be exposed, but contempt for the rules, the law, and the Constitution, well, folks, that's how our democracy dies.
Yeah. Well, Q, you know, your mother, Reverend Estella Seacrest, my father, Dr. Rudolph Wayne Taylor, were pastors, preachers, reverends, people of faith, people in leadership positions. And so you and I grew up with a certain proximity to, I guess, faith, Christianity, what have you, that many people didn't grow up with, right? A lot of people go to church, a lot of people grew up in church, but we were the type that church followed us home. You know what I mean? We was always in church somehow, some way. We was connected to it directly. And obviously, you know, you grow and you learn and you find your path and you find your walk and you determine who you are relative to whatever it is that you decide your creator is, and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, the Bible sort of is a foundational element, I think, in both of our stories. And regardless of what happens in the future, it will always be a cultural watering hole for me and you and those of us who have our roots in slavery, right? Because so much of our language comes from black churches through, the South and the culture and the language of the South, that it's spread throughout the country, right? So this is how I know certain things, being from Compton, California, that you also know being from Detroit, Michigan, because they both have their roots in a black church in the South, right? So when we talk about heaven, I want to use this in a way that's respectful to people, where this is their faith, this is their everything. I totally respect that. And I'm certainly not the person who can judge. I would not pass judgment. And I'll speak for you, Q. Q is not the sort of person that would pass judgment. That's not our way, and we know better than that. But I think that this story really shows exactly who we're dealing with in his own words. And we like to do this when he gives us so much to use. He gives us who he is in his own words. And it's like, Q always says it's like we're in the Twilight Zone, right? So I'll read this. I'll say a bit more, and then I'll pass it over to you, Q. But this one really bugs me. This is BINnews.com. President Donald Trump says he doesn't believe he's heaven bound. Quote, "I think I'm not, maybe heaven bound," unquote. Trump said on Sunday, October 12th, while speaking to reporters on Air Force One. He goes on to say, "I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven," he added. "But I've made life better for a lot of people," unquote. Trump's comments came in response to a question about remarks the president made in August, when he suggested that brokering peace between Russia and Ukraine might improve his chances of getting into heaven. Quote, "I want to try and get into heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well," unquote. Trump previously told Fox News. Goes on to say, "But if I can get into heaven, this will be one of the reasons," unquote. When asked on Sunday about whether his role in the recent Gaza ceasefire could help, Trump responded, quote, "I mean, I'm being a little cute," before repeating his doubts about being heaven bound. Sunday's comments went viral on social media, with several users agreeing with Trump's sentiment. Okay. So there's the story. Again, at BINnews.com if you want to check it out for yourself. I said this on a recent episode too. Donald Trump was on Howard Stern's show, and this was a long time ago, and people circulated this when he was first running for president the first time. And somehow the subject of like sexual predators came up. Donald Trump was talking about his beauty pageants or something like that. And again, you could look this up. It's him and Howard Stern. It's an interview he did. And Howard Stern's like, "Oh man, well, the sexual predator is like, if anybody's going to be a sexual predator that they got to watch out for, it's you." And Donald Trump was kind of smiled. He's like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." And he kind of threw his hands up like, "Yeah, I guess that is me." Right. So Donald Trump has said that, admitted that, right? Donald Trump famously, you can walk up to him, grab him by the P word. That is like the most vile, disgusting thing I've ever heard anybody say who's in an elected position at all, by a long way. That's just gross. Like, as a human, that's gross. You know what I'm saying? But the president of the United States said that before they elected him. And it was no doubt that he said it, because he came out and his wife came out and was like, "Yeah, this is just locker room talk." Tried to play it off. And then by his own admission, Donald Trump's not going to heaven. The reason that this one stands out to me is because so many of the evangelicals have said to their congregations that God sent this man for us to vote for. Right? People bought the Trump Bible. Right? Like, it's so clear that he's a grifter. It's so clear that he's a con man. It's so clear that he'll say it like, "Yo, man, I don't think I'm going to heaven. That's not a thing for me." And if you see the video, if you want to look at it for yourself, I think that the weight of the statement comes from sort of an implied sort of like, with the things I've done in my life, there's no way I'm going to get into heaven. Right? And he seems surprisingly comfortable with that. Right? If indeed you know what comes if you don't go to heaven, he seemed very comfortable with it. And he doubled and tripled down on it. He's like, "Nah, man, I'm not making it there." So for all of the people that did the mental gymnastics that you needed, especially like church folks, Christian folks that did the mental gymnastics needed to ignore the reality of the situation and to still cast a vote for this man who has made the material reality for so many people worse in such a cruel way, like unnecessarily cruel. You know, this is the weight of your decision. And the truth is, this man, by his own admission, is not a heavenly person. And you had to do the mental gymnastics to make him into a heavenly person in order to vote for him, because you wanted this, not because it had any basis in your faith and not because it was consistent with your morality or the morality of your Bible. And you weaponized that Bible to go after everything and everyone. And if Donald Trump said it, then you found the scripture to counter it and to go after it, cherry picked and all of that. And we've been subjected to a reality that bears no resemblance to the sort of world that I would imagine, as a person that grew up with the Bible, the sort of world that Jesus would want for all of us, the way for us to treat each other, the way for us to regard each other. It bears no resemblance to that because you elected this man. I know I said a lot, Q. Please, go ahead.
The thing that troubles me the most, Rams, is that I know his base will not be deterred by this. They'll find a way to make this part of God's plan too. Look at his humility and his benevolence, and all have sinned and fall short. And that's all he's saying. Like, they'll find a way to make it not exactly what he just said. The man has no interest in your heaven. You know why? Because he uses your Bible to justify the hell he creates for people on this earth during this life for promises of a heaven that they'll have afterwards. While he gets to live in heaven now, him and his family making billions of dollars while people starve, creating the conditions that are imprisoning people and tearing families apart and causing people to have less than they've ever had. While him, his family, his friends, and his cronies, who were already rich, they already had everything they could ever need for this lifetime and the next. They just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything. So as he grifts and takes and pilfers and steals, you'll keep holding him up. You'll keep praising him. And you'll even take this statement where he's saying out of his own mouth that heaven is not in the cards for him and tell us somehow how that makes him even better. And we will shake our heads, but I'm not sure I'll feel sorry for you.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on the QR code. We appreciate you checking us out one more again. Today's show, as always, was produced by Chris Thompson. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, do us a favor, use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. And while you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. Still pushing the YouTube channel. You subscribing and viewing our videos, that actually does help us out. Leaving comments helps us out. So find us on all social media, but especially on YouTube at Civic Cypher, CIVIC-CIPHER. I have been your host. You can find me on all social media at Ramses Ja.
He has been your host. I just work here, but you can find me on social media as well. I am Q Ward is the handle.
Listen, it's the QR code, as in Q and Ramses. And join us next time as we share our news with our voice from our perspective right here on the QR code.